Hello, Sans fans, and welcome again to Facebook Live. As you know, we do these most Wednesdays at 3 p.m., and we come here to talk to music therapists, art therapists, other professionals, and other supporters of Sam's fans. And I'm really excited today to have a music therapist, Dr. Amy Clements Cortes. She's done a lot, and we'll be talking about her research, about her jobs at leading organizations, and a lot more. So thank you for joining us, Dr. Clements Cortes.
Happy to be here. Thank you for the invitation, Samuel.
Definitely. And remember that if you have any questions or comments, feel free to drop them and we will do our best to answer. And just to begin, Dr. Clements Cortes is the assistant professor, faculty of music at the University of Toronto. She's an instructor and supervisor at Wilfrid Laurier University, academic coordinator and instructor, interdisciplinary studies at Ryerson Chang School, a music therapist and a registered psychotherapist. She has extensive clinical experience working with clients all across the lifespan, with a specialty in older adults, dementia and palliative care, which we'll be talking about. She has authored multiple peer-reviewed publications, including Voices of the Dying and Bereaved, and has given over 100 conference and or invited academic presentations. She's the past president of the World Federation of Music Therapy and managing editor of the Music and Medicine Journal. Also past president of the Canadian Association of Music Therapists, and serves on the editorial review boards for 9 international journals, including the Journal of Alzheimer's, where she holds the position of senior editor. So, Dr. Clements Cortes, I'm just amazed at all the things you've done. You do research, you teach, you do a lot of academic work, and help leading organizations as well. So, awesome. Kudos to you, and thanks for joining us.
I'm very passionate about our discipline. And again, thank you for inviting me.
Yeah, definitely. So now just to get started, you got your master's and your doctoral degrees from the University of Toronto. And I'm curious, and maybe some of our viewers are curious, how you got started in music therapy. What was that first calling?
Well, actually, when I was in high school, I was very fortunate to do a co-op placement because I was torn as to what I really wanted to do for a career. I always thought that I would be in the arts in some way. I danced from a very young age and thought I would be a dancer, actually, or a dance teacher for many years. And then I had a series of injuries, which made it realistic that that was not going to be a sustainable career. But I was always engaged with music. I sang in my church choir from, the time I was about 6. And then I led the folk choir at church and taught myself guitar and was in all of the plays. So I was very musical. But I also wanted to help people. I had this great desire and I thought I'd be a social worker. But through this co-op placement, I went in to teach English as a second language, actually, using music to recent immigrants. I went to a nursing home where I led a hymn sing and spent time with the residents. I went with a music therapist one day a week at a long-term care home. And it was there, I knew that was the career for me. I saw how the clients that had dementia would respond to music. And yet they couldn't remember me from week to week. And that was very new for me in high school. And I was amazed, and I knew that was the career for me. And so I sought out to do my undergraduate degree at the University of Windsor. I started working in Toronto. I started in private practice and also started clinically. I started teaching as well, teaching voice. So always had my hand in a lot of pots. And then as I worked a little bit, I wanted to learn more about how I could really continue to help my clients. And that's why I went back to U of T to do my advanced degrees and to do more research.
Awesome. Did you also get your undergrad in music therapy?
Yes, my undergrad was in music therapy.
Right. So you knew that you wanted music therapy early on. I think that's awesome.
I did. I really, and I toyed when I finished. did I want to also teach, and did I want to maybe pursue a different career? And so I did apply to do other things, like go to law school, which I got accepted. And I just, but in music, it was the calling, and I knew it. And so I'm really happy that I've fallen into this career, and I love it. So.
And the music therapy world is also happy to have you, thanks to all the things you've done, definitely.
Yeah, I feel very enriched by the music therapy community worldwide.
Mm-hmm. And so one thing about Sam's Fans and about what we do, the interviews, our blog, is that we're kind of focused on children because of the nature of our mission, right? We support music therapy for children with serious illnesses. And we've talked a lot about that. And I know, and obviously you've worked with clients all across the lifespan and with different populations. But since you have specialized in persons with dementia and those in palliative care, so maybe we can start there. We can start talking about, in general, music therapy with persons with dementia, older persons, and more specifically about your work with them.
Sure. So in terms of dementia, that's kind of where I began my career. I began working in long-term care, hospital, and as well as a nursing home. And the majority of clients now definitely have dementia in those facilities, just because of the increased amount of older adults that we have. They are coming into nursing homes usually with more advanced degrees than when I first began working clinically. I also work extensively with older adults having mental health issues that are cognitively intact. So there are a lot of things that we can do. If I'm working with clients that have dementia, I use a variety of music therapy interventions. So singing, improvising music, writing songs, moving to music, music and art, many different experiences, including vibroacoustic therapy, which I've completed some research on, and I'm also still working in that area. And the goals typically tend to be to maintain cognition, stimulate reminiscence, promote that connection to identity that can somehow be lost in the fog of dementia. So, helping people connect into music from an early time in their life, later adolescence and early adulthood can trigger a connection to identity. And I always joke with my students and say that when I'm older, and if you're my music therapist, I said, you best come equipped to play me some Michael Jackson, because I love that music, and I think that would help connect me, and flash dance, music from quite a young childhood age. So I believe, and I see how that works, how music can help people connect to that sense of identity, and how important that is for their families if they see them engage and see that person that maybe, again, is sometimes not present with us because of the dementia. Music can also be a way for these persons to communicate, right? To have some expression on their environment. There's a lot of research that points to how agitation can be reduced through the use of music with persons that have dementia. And certainly part of my work also is advocating on how allied healthcare and caregivers can use music experiences to enhance their work with older adults. So providing singing at the bedside when you are perhaps changing someone or doing activities of daily living. So, here's a great clinical example. I can go up to a unit in the nursing home where there's a client that has dementia and who paces around the floor all day, and they can't get him to sit down. He's so agitated. But in music, he can sit down and focus for 45 minutes and actively participate and does not look agitated. We also work on social interaction, trying to help people engage with others. Sometimes older adults that have a dementia might sit beside each other and not interact, but they do when there's a music opportunity. So that's a lot of my area has been working with people that have dementia. I also do choirs with people that have dementia. It's been an area of research for me. In terms of the mental health, I use a variety of approaches. I even do guided imagery and music with some older adults that may benefit from that. And I think we might talk about that later.
Mm-hmm.
And I think there's also opportunity for seniors who are physically frail. There definitely are a lot of techniques, and certainly neurologic music therapy can be very beneficial to individuals that have suffered stroke or have Parkinson's, which often tend to be more common with people with advanced age. Specific neurologic techniques like rhythmic auditory stimulation or some of the communication techniques that help people that have had a stroke to regain language. So I've done a lot of work in that area as well, working with clients that have aphasia, so they are not able to either understand or to speak, typically following a stroke. So using different techniques to help them regain some speech or at least some vocalization, or prompt some automatic kind of speech for them. Yeah.
So it's a lot that we can do with
Oh, there's so much.
presence.
That's not just like, not even, I guess that's the
Right.
nail on the head, right?
Yeah, and I think that some people might be aware of some of this because of this documentary. What is it called? The one that was really famous,
Right.
Alive
So,
Inside?
Alive Inside. Now, I do have some cautions about the
Okay.
documentary. The great thing is, yes, it raised the profile of what music can do for people that have dementia. The challenge in that documentary is that it's not a music therapist, right? They're using different people are creating the playlists. And I'm not saying a music therapist has to be the one, but there are educated ways to create a playlist. And also to not put headphones on a person that has dementia, because that's really isolating, right? So when I talk to caregivers, I encourage them to share the music, put the music on a speaker, sit with the person, talk about what that music means, and be there to support them if there is a negative reaction to the music, or enhance a really positive one, so that there is that engagement.
Yeah, I think it's important also to know that and to talk about this documentary because it might be one of the only instances where people have seen this kind of interventions or this kind of work with music and persons with dementia. But it's a good point that you make, and it's important for people to recognize that a music therapist can do so much more.
But I do believe that I always talk about this continuum of music experiences because honestly, I believe that there is value in all of them, and that we should be including them all. For example, ranging from entertainment to music recreation to singing for health and wellness to formal music therapy, entrainment, all of these experiences. Because I think of myself and how much do I like going to a concert, right? It has benefit. So I think all the experiences are valuable.
Right. And how about relationship completion within this work? Because you can talk a lot better about it, so I'll let you talk.
Well, that's really I've spent a lot of time working in this area with individuals in palliative care, so persons at end of life. That was the focus of my doctoral dissertation. So there was a lot of research that had been done, a good body of evidence for the use of music therapy with individuals at end of life. And people were talking about how they were helping people express emotions and work on relationships, but no one was really calling it relationship completion, so to speak. And I looked at the work of a medical doctor, Ira Bjork, from the United States, who talks about the 5 sentiments that we need to express to help relationships come to some completion. So they are: thank you, I love you, I forgive you, please forgive me, and goodbye. And I think it's not that you're not trying to close the relationship. You are trying to ensure that it's ending in some way, that maybe it keeps going when the person passes, but you feel a sense of completion with that person, or with yourself. So it's not solely with interpersonal relationships. It could be with yourself, completing that relationship. It could be with a pet. It could be also with a spiritual or some kind of transpersonal relationship that you have. So near and dear to my work, I guess, I've worked with clients to help them end relationships with their significant others, like a spouse, using a variety of techniques. So again, all of the different experiences. I always, share that I'm very eclectic music therapist, trained in some different advanced approaches like neurologic music therapy and the Bonnie method of guided imagery. And I really try to use the techniques that are going to be of value to my clients, that resonate with them as well. And so we did, I would say a large part of my work in relationship completion has been songwriting, people writing songs, leaving them as legacy gifts, compilations of songs, musical autobiographies. So going back and chronicling their lives through music. There's a case example I'd like to share a story with you. This is Gloria and Jack, and I often talk about this case example when I speak of relationship completion. So Gloria was a 63-year-old female who was dying, who's diagnosed with her illness at the age of 60 and told then that she only had about 6 months to live, but she actually lived for a longer period of time. They didn't have children, the couple, and actually actively chose not to have children so that they could travel in retirement. And her husband would sit with her every day at the bedside, like from early morning to late at night, sometimes sleeping over for a good year that she was in the hospital in palliative care. And she wanted him to know how much he meant and how much she loved him. And even though she told him every day, I love you, and they shared many sentiments, she felt that it wasn't enough. Like she wanted to really ensure he knew. And they were in denial when I met them, like denial with each other. She knew she was dying and he knew, but they wouldn't talk to each other about it. And they would basically skirt around it and say, well, when you come home next year, and we will do this when you leave the hospital. And so it was through music that they were able to discuss, talk about her death. And we worked to prepare a song cycle. So it basically was chronicling the important events that happened in their marriage, and their life together, and writing songs for those special stories, or using pre-composed songs. There was one pre-composed song she chose to include, which was La Vie en Rose. And that's because one of their special anniversaries was going to Paris. And then we wrote beautiful music that he was so touched that she was so ill and had the capacity and ability to create such beautiful music. And we had a concert for him, and we spent a number of sessions just talking about each song and processing what those memories were. And I learned a lot about being in intimate spaces with people, and sometimes having to excuse myself so that they could have their privacy once those emotions, the music just naturally facilitated this expression of love. And with others, I've worked on them asking people for forgiveness, forgiving themselves for life regrets. Also having people just say goodbye to family. There was one case example of a family, was the grandfather was saying goodbye to the grandchildren, but also to his children and his wife. And we came together, and it was, he had created a legacy as well, choosing songs that represented the different individuals in his life, those important people. And they were all moved by that. And that was his formal way of saying goodbye.
Yeah. Wow. It's powerful just to hear about it, but even to live it and to...
I think to hear the music is what really is powerful. And I am pleased to say that I've developed an online tutorial through Music Therapy Online, that if people are interested in learning more about this concept, and there's also a free video about it that you can have a look at.
Oh, awesome. I'm going to put that in the comments so that people know. musictherapyonline.com?
Yes. Yeah.
So it's
I'm not sure if it's .com, but it's Jacinta Calabro. Yeah.
Yeah. That's great. I didn't know that. I'm going to check that out.
Okay, great.
It's great. And it's just so much that can happen. And the tool of music is so great, because otherwise you can do these things somehow, I don't know, a psychologist or something, but having music there is just a whole different world.
I think so. Certainly we know that some music therapy approaches are completely improvisational, where there is not a focus on the verbal. Again, because I'm very eclectic, there is a combo, right? I do psychotherapy with my clients that need psychotherapy, and that's what they've come for, and that we've created the goals around. And a lot of that is music psychotherapy, not necessarily just the talk.
Right. Awesome. Now let's also talk about, you talked about choirs and about singing, and there's this study called the Buddies Glee Club. So can we talk about that?
Yes, of course. So Buddy's Glee Club is a multi-phase study. There's 3 phases. And the goal was to look at what, if any, are the health and wellness benefits of singing for older adults. So phase 1 started with adults in an adult daycare program who was a mix, cognitively intact and cognitively impaired. And it was using qualitative and quantitative measures. I didn't have statistically significant quantitative results from that study, but I had good qualitative themes. There were 5 themes that emerged, such as friendship, fun, simplicity. And it was the battery of tests that I used in the first round that maybe were not getting at what I wanted to assess. So I refined the study in phase 2 and based my model on a wellness model from the 70s by Hetler, where wellness was defined in a certain number of domains. And so from that, we had statistically significant results in reductions in pain, in reductions in, or rather enhancements in mood, energy. And so that was really encouraging. And there were also themes that emerged out of that. That took place in a long-term care home with clients that were all cognitively impaired. And then phase 3, I wanted to do something different and novel. And so I had a choir that was for individuals with a dementia, and attending the choir with a caregiver. So that could be a daughter, a son, a spouse, or even a private paid caregiver. And we were looking to see if there were benefits for both the individuals with dementia and their caregivers. And I'm pleased to say that, again, statistically significant results for both groups, either combined or apart. So reductions in anxiety, reductions in pain, enhancements in mood, very encouraging. And that study used a variety of different data collection methods, as well as triangulation, trying to ensure that it wasn't just our interpretations or my interpretations of the findings. So there were video examples that were rated by people that had nothing to do with the study. There was observation, there was pre and post tests, pre and post questionnaires, interviews. So a variety of tools so that we could ensure what we were seeing is to be accurate. And those studies were called Buddy's Glee Club because they were funded by a private donor, as well as the Advancing Interdisciplinary Research in Singing collaborative grant. And the private donor, her husband was named Buddy and had a love of music, her late husband. So we termed it Buddy's Glee Club.
Great. And this might be a dumb question, but how does a choir with people with dementia work? Like, do they remember the songs? Do you need to find a song that they remember?
Excellent question. And there's never a dumb question. So actually actually it's a really smart question, because that was something that was one of the findings, that it was important to include music that was appreciated by the clients and that they preferred. So, but I always like to shake things up. So we did include music that kind of was popular generally, right, for that group. Now, the majority of clients in my choir for this study were of Jewish culture, so we used some Jewish music as well as music from the 30s, the 40s, Broadway songs, that sort of thing. And then I also, now this is not part of the research study because that was a couple of years ago, and my choir, the choirs are still running, not the one with caregivers, but the other one in the adult daycare program I still run. And in that choir last year, I guess, or maybe at the beginning of last year, I can't remember when, I challenged them to learn a brand new song. So they don't necessarily remember the songs from week to week, but we do have a song book, and most people are singing from their memory. and not using the song sheets because they can't necessarily read any longer.
Yeah.
But that was also one of the outcomes, that they took it very seriously and wanted official choir books. And our choirs perform for other people, as big as like over 150 people. We cut a CD. We have a CD, which was a great experience. So it's awesome. And, you know, the goal is not to have this polished performance or to sing well, but so many other goals. But the thing is that they do sing well and we do sound pretty good. So that's also awesome.
And what's the verdict? Should every nursing home have a choir?
I think so. I think not everyone wants to be in a choir, but I think out of a nursing home that is, you know, of a moderate size, I think you're going to get a group. And it's important the choir can't be that big either, because you know, you need people to support the clients with dementia. So we were lucky that we had some volunteers, even just one volunteer that could walk around while you're leading the choir, and if possible to have a separate accompanist, sometimes a volunteer, a music therapy intern, or if you're fortunate to have a paid accompanist, it's very helpful.
Yeah. And I guess the problem often, at least in many places in the world, is that nursing homes might be understaffed, underfunded, and that's always a problem also with music therapy. Who's going to fund this? Who's going to pay for this or that? But,
it's unfortunate. I mean, in Canada, we're not a regulated healthcare profession. In Ontario, the College of Registered Psychotherapy, where I live, is a registered college, but you don't necessarily we're not always doing psychotherapy as music therapists, and there is no dedicated funding from the government to hire a music therapist. So the nursing home has to find it and reallocate the money that they do have. But it's unfortunate, because I think that music therapy, especially with older adults, really reaches individuals well into the late stage of the disease, whereas other therapies maybe can't. They don't.
Yeah, I agree. And let's move on to something that you mentioned earlier. And I know that you have a book chapter that you wrote recently for the new Graki edited guided imagery and music text from 2019. And it's on bereavement and grief. So can you tell us a bit about this approach?
Oh, so the Bonnie method of guided imagery and music is an advanced training. So it's a completely separate training from becoming a music therapist. And there are 3 levels in order to become a practicing fellow in the method. And that takes a number of years and commitment. But anyone can do the level 1 that has music experience or psychology training that's interested to learn about using music for guided imagery experiences. But in this method, typically a client comes to the session and you begin with what's called the pre-talk. So you find out, after you've done the assessment, each time when they come back to you, you find, what it is that they desire to get out of the session. You talk, maybe you talk a little bit about what has transpired in therapy before this time. And the therapist, which is called the guide, gets a sense of where the client wants to go that day, and they get a sense of images to the music, so providing that springboard for the therapy. And they also choose a music program. So the Bonnie method has a number of programs that are already created with classical music, and they've all been created in order to achieve certain goals. And they range from about 30 minutes to some just over an hour of music. And so what happens is the client and therapist then transition from the pre-talk to a bed where the client lies down and the therapist sits closely, or to a mat, something comfortable where the client can really get into their unconscious. So the therapist does what's called an induction to try to get the client to come into a state where they're going to access their unconscious. And then they give them the linking image. So something such as you're on a road when someone is coming to meet you. Really depends what they've come with, what the issue is. And then the music begins. And the whole idea during the music experience is that the client is reporting to the therapist everything that they're seeing, feeling, sensing, and the therapist is there to support that. So they write a transcript of what is happening that can be presented to the client after. And they use a variety of techniques. So trying to enhance certain things, so ensuring the client knows they're there. They ask questions to get more clarification or insight on something that a client is seeing. And it's amazing what people see and the realities they come to. There's a lot of archetypes that come up for people. And then the music comes to an end. The therapist ensures they give time for the person to come back, so to speak, like into their conscious. And then they may draw a mandala after to process it. And then before the therapy session ends, the therapist or the guide invites the client to sit back up in chairs or at eye level, so that they can then do a post talk, wrap up the session. The therapist and guide ensures that the client is back. You want to make sure they're safe. Sometimes I even offer, something to drink or a cookie to make sure that people are back in themselves, and talk about what was in that journey. And sessions don't have to be every week in this method. There can be time that longer periods of time, depending on what the client is looking for. But the whole idea is around expanded awareness and is based on humanistic psychology. And certainly you can go to the Body Method website to learn a bit more, to find out where there's trainings, because there are trainings in a number of places and it travels around. So you can always look to see if you're interested to do a level 1 and find out more about it.
Yeah. And we could do a whole session, Facebook Live session on just this. So I know there's a lot to it.
I think so.
We could talk about. Amy, so we have talked for 30 minutes, but there's still a couple of questions, and I'm wondering if you're okay talking about some of the other things. Okay. Sure. Yeah, it's a lot of really interesting stuff and really interesting research and work that you've done. And again, appreciate you doing all the work and also coming to talk to us today. And so next, I wanted to ask you about the Journal of Music and Medicine. I know that the International Association of Music and Medicine turned 10 years old this year. And I'm just wondering, also for our viewers, what's the importance? Well, first of all, what's the journal and what has been its progress through the years? And why is it important to have it?
Great. Yeah. So the International Association for Music and Medicine is a group that was formed 10 years ago with musicians, music therapists, physicians, medics, probably some nurses, allied health, and has grown to people that are using music in health experiences, music and medicine experiences. It's important to have a journal that's dedicated to this. And I think the reason is that we're growing this literature and we're growing this body. And the one unique thing about music and medicine is that there is a lot of description of the music that's used in the research or in the articles, in the case examples. And that's something that sometimes gets missed. People talk about their studies and the music did this and the music helped with pain and the music helped with anxiety, but we never know what kind of music it was. And so music and medicine is dedicated to really ensuring that you're telling us, what it is. Also, I think it provides a platform for us to continue to grow, and the journal has grown since its inception. It originally was housed with Sage, but now it is an in-house production. So there are 2 co-editors. There is a managing editor, myself. We have a production manager. We have a translation team. And so I feel like these people are all volunteers, right? We work together, but have a passion, again, for growing this field. And we have an amazing editorial review board with experts from around the globe in a number of areas. And I think that's also why it's important to have this journal, because it's a platform where papers are reviewed with a high integrity because there are experts that are reviewing them. Currently, right now, if you belong to the International Association for Music and Medicine, which is a relatively inexpensive fee, you get 4 copies of the journal a year. We're very consistent. We're referenced in several indexes, and we hope to continue to grow. And we do also have special editions. So you can look at some of the past ones. There was one on guided imagery and music, and we're always planning to have special editions as well as to the regular edition. So it definitely was born out of a strong group of founding members that are still very much part of the organization, but has grown to include others such as myself and other music and medicine leaders around the world.
Yeah, and this is great for us also at Sans Fans, because then you're talking about music and medicine, which is close to our mission. We work closely with music therapists in hospitals, mostly pediatric hospitals, but it's also important to have this body of research to show to our supporters, to people who want to support, why this is important, why this is useful. So we'll definitely be sharing more. We have been sharing a little bit from the journal in our blog and so on, but we'll be sharing more.
That's great.
And it's great that it's out there, that research is being conducted on this. So it's awesome. Yeah.
Great.
And then the other thing that wanted to talk about, because you've done so much and it's great, but specifically about your leadership in organizations. So you have served as president of the Canadian Association of Music Therapists, as well as past president of the World Federation of Music Therapy. And so now let's talk a little bit about that role, more in a leadership position. What was it like? What was within the scope of those roles, and how did it impact you?
Sure. It was an honor to be the president of the Canadian Association as well as that of the World Federation. I got my start, I guess, in board work or service work with the CAMT, the Canadian Association, as the internship chair. So that's how I learned more about how the board works. And I was really passionate about supporting students and creating internship opportunities and supervisor training. And so that's how I got in, and then became president, and my scope it was a different scope, right? It was overseeing how our profession is recognized in Canada and around the globe. In terms of the World Federation of Music Therapy, I also began as a clinical commissioner, serving for the board, and then became president, and was really honored to be chosen to do this very important role. The World Federation, again, is a nonprofit organization, all comprised of volunteers. Our mission is to, promote music therapy as an art and a science. We have 8 commissioners. We're looking at accreditation, certification, education and training, research. We've got a number of publications on the WFMT website, or resources rather, and we have a journal as well. The World Congress of Music Therapy is held every 3 years and travels around the globe. And the conference proceedings are free and published online in our Music Therapy Today journal. We have World Music Therapy Day. If you don't know, please join us March 1st, where we do a lot of Facebook and social media. But I guess when I was president, I was tasked with developing a strategic plan and kind of overseeing where the organization would go in the years ahead. And that was a huge undertaking, but we did accomplish a number of goals, and really saw what we had done, I guess. I also was very fortunate to liaise and meet people from around the world virtually as well as in person, try to help connect music therapists with different organizations, with resources. I think one of the challenges of the profession is that music therapy is not still well understood. People still think music listening is music therapy. So part of our job is advocating for the profession, educating people on what the different experiences are. And then some countries that don't have any music therapists that want to get a training up and going, trying to support those individuals that maybe come to us or linking them with resources. So a lot of that, trying to find connection to grow our profession and ensure that the standards of training and education and certification are also more equal, right? To make it easier for people that might want to, move from Canada to another country to practice music therapy. So certainly it's, until you, I think, take on a board role, it's hard to know all of what's there, but I really feel it's an honor, and it's an honor for me to be past president right now, which is my role is to provide leadership to the president or guidance to answer historical things, to look at student scholarships, professional scholarships, to take on a project, which is my work with the World Congress organizer and her team. It's also to help to gather the next proposals for the next World Congress and look at providing feedback and disseminating those to others in our board so that we provide feedback, and then people come to bid for the next World Congress. So just so many different things. I can't even think of them all. I think I edited the proceedings for the last World Congress with Dr. Brottens from Spain. And just every day, back and forth, people contacting from the media as well, finding the World Federation, wanting to know more about it. Yeah, a wonderful opportunity, though. I met so many people from different professions, but a lot of music therapists and students. And again, I see that passion, people wanting to develop this profession and move it ahead.
Yeah. I'm trying to go to South Africa next year to the Congress.
Oh, I hope so. Yeah, wonderful.
Yeah. And I was going to ask you something else and I forgot. But that's great. Oh, yeah, I was going to ask you, since you were, throughout the years, how have you seen music therapy evolve? What are still the challenges? Well, you talked a little bit about that, but what has been the World Federation kind of influence here around the globe?
I guess, like looking historically, there's kind of waves of music therapy development. Certainly in the early stages, music therapy kind of got its birth after World War II, when musicians and music educators were using it to help war vets, right, in terms of recovery. I would have to say in the last years, like the most recent years, I've seen it advanced, or this growth of advanced trainings. So more people are wanting to access and take things like neurologic music therapy, like the Bonnie method, or specializing in a population. I've seen more mixed methods research studies in the field, more Cochrane reviews, more systematic reviews. So definitely the level of research, I think, there's a lot of research and it continues to evolve. I believe that qualitative research is important. I believe quantitative is important. Certainly there was a wave of more qualitative literature probably after the 1980s. Up until that point, it was largely quantitative. I'm very much a mixed methods researcher. I would say definitely that we've grown the literature, right? There are a number of music therapy journals. Music therapists are also publishing more frequently in non-music therapy journals, which is really important as well, because then we're not just educating ourselves. Others might not read our journals. So that's important. I've seen the impact factor of music therapy journals increase, which is amazing. And I've also seen that there are more advanced education degrees. So more people are seeking out getting a master's, getting a PhD than before. Petra Kern and Daniel Tay conducted a large worldwide survey of music therapists around the globe, and that's also published. People can look at the facts of where music therapists are working, etc. But definitely we've seen that there are areas that are developing more. Certainly smaller countries are trying to develop music therapy training programs, and it's in the US, there are thousands of music therapists. In Canada, I'm not 100% sure, but I would say we're in about the 750 range of music therapists that are accredited and certified or credentialed as well. Yeah, and certainly there's more, I would say more credentialing. There's more awareness of the need to have some kind of an accrediting body so that there's a standard for the profession.
Right. Awesome. Quick hello to Patty. She is Nikki's mom, and Nick is the founder. So she's one of our most frequent viewers. So hello, thanks for watching.
Patty. Thanks for watching.
And but yeah, that's awesome. Everything that you talked about. Yeah, it's great, and there's still a lot of work to do, obviously. But I think the more connections we create, the more we come together and do research and talk to. Yeah,
that is another trend, is collaborating. So definitely not working in a silo, collaborating with other disciplines, collaborating with other music therapists, so that we're not reinventing the wheel, but rather we're building on each other's expertise. So whenever possible, it's wonderful to collaborate with others and on research. Yeah, for sure.
And another thing that has to do with what we're doing now is social media. I wrote a small piece for the newsletter from the International Association of Music and Medicine about how there seems to be this trend of social media posts about music therapy, and it kind of makes sense, right? Because it's such a visual profession. It's like you're not just listening to people talk, right? You can see videos of music therapy in action, and you can see so much more. So that's also what we're trying to do here, trying to bring music therapy closer to people who might not know about the profession, to other professionals. And so again, thank you for joining us, and that's what we're trying to do here.
Thank you. And actually, when you invited me, I took a look at some of the other videos, and you've had some very great speakers. So you're doing a great job. Keep up the good work.
Thank you. And yeah, I think those are about all the questions we had. It's been one of our longest interviews, so thank you for that.
I'm chatting, just like my daughter.
but it's great. It's everything is really valuable information.
Great.
Just here at the end, if anybody watching has any final words, speak now or never. But do you have anything else you would like to say that was left unsaid?
No, I just thank you for the opportunity, and I look forward to watching some of your future live recordings.
Right, definitely. And so, Sam's fans, stay tuned. We don't have anything scheduled for the next week, but we'll keep you updated on when we have our next guests. And yeah, also on social media, we're always sharing a lot of articles. We still write for our blog and a lot more. So just stay tuned.
Great.
Thank you, Dr. Amy Clements Cortes, and thank you for everything that you do for music therapy.
Thank you too, Samuel. Hope to meet you one day in person.
Ciao.